Hey folks, by now I am hopeful that you have made it through a bunch of the lessons in Unit 2 related to functions. And I want to try to clarify the difference or the how I want to try to clarify how functions work together with mouse events and properties. But before I do, I want to lay out the groundwork and make sure that you're really clear what functions are, because we've actually seen several different forms of functions. And to you, maybe they're all different, but it's going to make it a lot easier for your brain to understand if you realize that they're all the same. Okay, so let's take a look at the different types of functions that we've encountered so far in Unit 2. I hope you've made it most of the way through Unit 2, and so you've seen all of these. First of all, in Unit 1, we encountered functions, but we didn't spend a lot of time highlighting the fact that they were functions. So in Unit 1, we had functions that looked like this. Unit 1 functions were, let's see here, drew graphics. Let's see here. So we had functions that were like circle, and we gave it like an x, a center x, and a center y, and a radius, and we even could give it a fill if we wanted to. Okay, and then what else? And then there was other and by the way, the only thing we learned in Unit 1 was that this was a function call. The only thing we saw was function calls in Unit 1. And we don't know what the definition for this function looks like, but we used it all throughout function 1, and it is a function call. Okay, the name of the function is circle, and the arguments that we're giving it are 100, 220, etc. Okay, and then of course there was rectangle functions and oval functions and all of the other shape functions. Okay, so those were function calls. And we saw them all throughout Unit 1. Then, in Unit 2, we were exposed to the idea of what a function is, and we learned that functions can have a definition. So something like draw a circle, and maybe you take in a radius and a color, and then you write some code that draws a circle, and let's say again we do it at, I don't know, 200 comma 150, and we give it a radius of radius. We use the parameter in the radius, in our function call to the circle function, and then we give it a color, fill equals color. And so that was our function definition. Okay, and obviously there could be more lines of code, and they should all be indented if we want them to be part of this function. And then if we wanted that function to run, we would do a function called draw circle, and we would give it a radius and a color. So we might say like 50 comma blue. Okay, and supposedly that would do something. By the way, I'm kind of curious. I'm going to go ahead and put some hashtags in here. Let's see what our code looks like so far. Okay, it's kind of running, yay. Oh, by the way, when that blue box pops up, click somewhere on it other than where it's underlined. That'll get rid of it and hopefully get it out of your way so you can get back to work. Okay, then also, okay, so this was kind of in Unit 2, this was create your own function. But we did learn about other functions in Unit 2, and let me make this, since that's kind of like our heading, let's go ahead and make that fancy. The other thing we learned about was event handler functions, like let's see here, on mouse press is a function that is called by you clicking the mouse. Yay. Okay, and let's see here. So this falls in the category of event handler functions. In other words, if we do def on mouse press, and we take in an X and a Y. Whatever code we write here is how our code will handle the event of somebody clicking a mouse on the canvas. So again, we might say, well, let's draw a circle wherever the mouse is, okay? So at X comma Y, and we'll use a radius of, I don't know, 30. And we'll do a fill equal to, let's just leave it as a default fill, it'll be black. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And then supposedly if I click in places around the canvas, I get a mouse drawn wherever I click, okay? So that was this is the second type of function, I'm sorry, the third type of function that we became aware of. Up here, Unit 1, we learned about function calls for graphic shapes for drawing. In Unit 2, we learned about creating our own function definition and calling it. And we also learned about event handler functions like on mouse press and on mouse release. But again, they're all related. All of these things are functions in one way, shape, or form. Then, the other thing is something known as a helper function. Hold on one sec. Oops, turns out I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Helper functions come up in Unit 3, which you'll be looking at pretty soon. But I'm going to give you a heads up as long as we're here and I'm talking about the different types of functions. Helper functions are nothing more than, it's really like this guy right here is like a helper function, okay? Helper functions are just functions, and what in the context of us working in this online code writing environment from CMU, we're going to consider helper functions functions that they wrote that we can use so we don't have to write the code ourselves. Okay, so for instance, they might give us in Unit 3 a function instead of making us draw a circle, using the regular circle thing. They might give us a helper function to draw the circle, and then all we have to do is write the function calls. Let me see if I can give you a slightly fancier example. So let's say you're in Unit 3 and you are asked to draw 3 stars, and you are told to place your code here. So you write your code below that line, okay? What's going to happen is instead of you having to write the code to draw each of the 3 stars, they may very well provide you with a helper function called draw 3 stars. So you kind of need to look up and down through the code and look for the function they created for you. There is really nothing different about a helper function from the other functions that we've just looked at. It's kind of a helper to you because the code has already been written. All you got to do is call it. So you do have to understand how to call a function. In this case, once the function definition is given, you can call the function by giving the name of the function. In this case, draw 3 stars. But it saves you a little bit of time because all you got to do is provide the radius and the number of points on each star, and it'll automatically draw the stars in the correct location on the screen. So I'm going to say the radius is something like, actually, let's go ahead, let's go ahead and run up. An error occurred because I don't have any arguments in here. And let's go ahead and put this aside. There we go. And then let's go ahead and draw 3 stars. Let's do a radius of like 20, and the number of points on each star is 5. I will go ahead and hit run. Yay, all that work was done, and all I had to do was write the function call. If I wanted to do that multiple times with different colored stars, I can. And again, that is one of the advantages of functions, is you don't have to keep writing the same code over and over again. You just write one line of code and it does all the work for you. Here I write 2 lines of code and it does 6 lines of code worth of work. So I'm going to put in, let's put in smaller stars with maybe fewer points. Maybe let's do 4, and let's go ahead and run and see how that looks. I don't think they showed up because they're on the they're in back. Let's make them bigger. So 30 and 6 points, and then those guys kind of overwhelm the other stars. Maybe we'll learn something soon about something called opacity, and maybe we'll figure out a way to make these things so that you can see through them. Anyways, I just wanted to go over the different types of functions, or at least I wanted you to see how these various things that we've been discussing are related to each other, and that they are all functions in one way or another. Okay, hopefully you're with me, and hopefully that has helped.